Good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
Happy
Wendy.
Wednesday. I am so
Happy.
excited because we have somebody very special on our chat with us today around our little table that is global. This is one of the good things about this. I know there's a lot of things that are not so good about this mandatory vacation that we've all been put on, but it's really nice because we get to do these little opportunities to sit around and chat with people that perhaps maybe we might not be chatting with, and and the opportunity to do it right from our homes is just amazing. Don't ask us to stand up though, because I'm not quite sure if any of us are wearing pants right now, so that's kind of the nice bonus of it as well too. So
I look forward to these every morning. I actually get dressed. So my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I need to get dressed." He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, because."
I have pants on, but they're pajama pants. So
well,
there you go. Yeah.
Mine are usually of the yoga nature. Yoga pants. Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, good. Everyone had a good day yesterday. I know I was busy sprouting, and I tried some new flour, the chaki atta, which is a whole grain Indian type of flour. Didn't fare so well making focaccia because Tracy, I'm not a direction follower. So.
You're a woman after my heart. Then I'm not either.
So it ended up being some sort of focaccia, but the texture of the dough when I was kneading it was phenomenal, like silky. So I will actually make a loaf properly today with this bread, with my sourdough starter. It was the only flour that was left. Like, I don't know how it is over in you're in North Bay or up in
North Bay.
Yeah, the flour is like a hot commodity, and it's so you're like wondering, do I want it? All that's left is either Robin Hood or the odd stuff, right? The international stuff. So it's like, and then exactly. And then I never have a chance to order it in time for the bulk barn or for anyone else. And then the culinary place, it flies off the shelf there at our little exclusive pharmacy that we have here. It just flies off the shelf. So.
Yeah, I haven't seen flour you're
doing your cleanse. So.
I'm still cooking for everyone else. So, and I like baking. I would say I'm a decent cook, but I'm not a good baker. So I just keep trying.
Yeah.
And it's because I feel like when you're baking, following directions is more important than when you're cooking. Baking's a little bit of a finer science. So, but I haven't seen flour. I mean, mostly it's my partner going out once a week. But I got to go outside into society yesterday, so that was fun. But neither one of us have seen flour since this started in North Bay, and we've checked. Like we'll go to a couple of different stores. The bulk barn did have it the first week we went, and I didn't need any because I had a big bag. But now they're out too, so everyone's baking, I guess.
I guess everyone's baking. Yeah. Weird. There's still there's lots of bread, so I guess everyone's just taking advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, the first week that we went shopping, we were told we could only have 2. That was the thing. And my husband and my son, both working, out of the house, they take anywhere from 2 to 4 sandwiches each time they work. So that's a lot of bread to go through, and it's more than 2 loaves. So that's the reason why I started baking bread.
No kidding.
Because it just wasn't enough. I know all stores are not like that, but that was the first day a couple weeks ago. So that's how I got on the train of that right away and bought one of those big bags of flour right from the start. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually about halfway through, to be honest, and that's probably more than I use in a year typically.
Oh yeah, we had a big bag too, and I think I've got a quarter of it left. And I said to Chris, I was like, just keep your eye out if you see it,
Yeah.
And we haven't seen any, but we still some left.
So how is everyone faring in North Bay then? Have you had lots of cases, or
We haven't had a ton. I honestly, I haven't checked the numbers in about a week, but I don't even think we had a dozen at that point. And from what I've seen, like, talking to Chris when he goes out, and I've gone out maybe 2 times in the last 5 weeks. And we live in a part of North Bay where it's like a pretty student/family community, but we're really close to one of the busier streets near the university. And so you can see, like I can see the Tim Hortons if I look high enough over my deck. And I would say the parking lots are like half capacity of what they would be on a normal weekday. So wow. I feel like people are paying pretty good attention. Lots of people going out for walks and stuff like that. And for the most part being, trying to cross the street and stuff like that.
Social distancing.
Yeah. I think I've been surprised because the cases are low that people seem to be pretty diligent for the most part. And at least that's in this area where we are. Most of the people that live in this area work at the university or the schools. Like everybody I know is a teacher or they're in healthcare. So we kind of have that big split of people who are still working and really, under a lot of pressure. And then the rest of us who are sort of like on this little staycation. So, yeah.
So they're still doing all their courses on virtually. They have their exams coming up.
Yeah. So I'm doing my master's right now at Nipissing. And so I had to finish the semester online, which was an interesting experience. Going back to school after 20 years was hard anyway. But then this whole switch to doing online, they did a great job.
Right.
Yeah, they really did.
It's a smooth transition.
Yeah, I was really impressed. And I'm TAing as well. So, there's a lot of changes really fast, but and the kids are doing, my kids are in grade 1 and grade 3, and they're doing the online schooling. And our teachers are they go to a French immersion school here, and actually my daughter's teacher just lives up the street. So when we go for bike rides, we chat from the opposite side of the road, and they're really relaxed about it. So I'm just making sure that they speak French and read French a little bit every day. And then just letting them kind of self-direct learn. It's like, okay, we'll spend an hour. What do you want to do? Do you want to learn about dinosaurs? Great. Let's learn about dinosaurs. And
yeah.
We have our seedlings for our tower gardens planted right now. And so, that when we did that week, we did plant life cycle, and, so it's been kind of relaxed, but fun.
Nice. So, sorry, we forgot to introduce you. This is Tracy-Lynn. This is Tracy-Lynn Reside. And that's your professional, Reside is your professional last name as well?
Reside, yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So she is a naturopathic doctor in North Bay. And then we'll actually, once we get our fun little chit chat over, we'll just
chatting.
we're just chatting like, oh yeah, I forgot to totally tell who everybody is. So we met Tracy at the Living with Intention conference in Haileybury. And what a phenomenal conference. She was one of the main speakers. It was so incredible. And so we had such a great pleasure meeting her, and just a lot of the women there were just out of this world. So
amazing.
And we thought,
such a good conference.
It was a great conference. And so we just thought we saw you online. I asked what you were up to, and you said you were starting your practice again next week. So I know that had been something you had been juggling for a while now, because you are busy doing your master's, and that was in was that neuroscience you were doing?
It's sort of, yeah. It's basically brain and behaviors and hormones. So the technical term is social neuroendocrinology, but that's a lot of syllables. Yeah. It sounds fancier than, maybe it is, but I work with a really fantastic PhD supervisor at Nipissing. He's actually the world expert in testosterone and aggression and competition.
Oh.
And he brought me in partially to he wants to expand to do some of the other hormones, which I know better. Like you guys.
Yeah.
And I've done some medical supervision too on some clinical trials that they're doing with diabetics and things like that. So it's been interesting. It was really just a break for me. I needed a break from practicing, and I got the opportunity. And my partner was already up here in North Bay. We'd been living apart for about almost 2 years at that point, because he works for the Lakers, all the sports teams. So it was a nice little marriage, and it's super interesting. And I know most people don't take a break and go back and do their masters, but that's kind of my jam. So yeah.
No, and honestly, how blessed you are to be in isolation, to be doing your masters. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better finale.
No, and I mean, I really feel right now, for people who had more brick and mortar practices, especially naturopaths, because we're really tightly regulated in Ontario, and overnight they changed everything, and how we could practice. It literally happened like that.
Well, it had to.
And that's, but it's, so a lot of them are facing, stresses that I would have been facing a couple years ago too. So, my heart goes out to all the practitioners out there who are trying to juggle all of this. But I certainly feel very blessed to be in the position that we're in. We're both still getting paid from the university, and we're working still, but the workload is different.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
exactly. That is incredible. So so you are going to be incorporating more of the neurohormone aspect to your practice, and that's going to be launching soon. And that's just, are you in one-on-one or strictly online?
Well, right now it'll be online for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? So we're in Ontario, naturopaths are, we're only allowed to see urgent cases right now, which it's up to our determination about what that means, and we have to justify it. So I don't know what the holistic nutritionists and other unregulated professions are sort of doing, but for us, we're very the line's pretty clear. Like, you have to be able to justify it. And I have a few people who have reached out to me who I would consider to be urgent. They're either in a lot of pain, or they're, mental health or hormones are out of control. And so you have to, so it'll be online for now. And I'm doing some group stuff. That's just kind of fun coaching. So I'm going to focus definitely on women and behavior and hormone health. Which was what I loved to do before, but I was in a general practice, so I was seeing everybody, and that was, I don't think, productive for me or patients. I'm sure you guys feel that way too. Yes. That when you have people come in, and it's in your it's good to be pushed out of your comfort zone, but when you're practicing, and you have someone that comes in and that's your ideal patient, and it's everything's in flow, versus if I have someone come in with a condition that I have to research, and it just takes a lot longer. And then you're wheelhousing.
Okay, who actually is the skilled practitioner in that?
Exactly. And I'm so much more, I think it's better for the patient to be referred to the person who that's their wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the industry is moving in that direction. It wasn't like that 10 years ago. But I think with the advance of people coming online, then we're not allowed to be specialists, but we can have a special interest.
A niche.
A niche. I think that idea is kind of coming in, and we're starting to get a really good idea of who's really good at what. And I think that's a really positive change for naturopaths, because we have such a broad scope of practice, that sometimes it's sort of like you're, a jack of all trades and like a master of nothing.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
No, exactly. And that's the same thing with, as nutritionists, you really want to, help everyone that you can with group programs, and when you're one-on-one, that's where you get really specific, but it's much, our passion is fulfilled when you're actually that person who you are wanting to help falls in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's just so amazing to be able to just do that and feel so blessed. Like, it's a blessing, and you want to just pour your heart into it, and you just are holding them accountable, and you want to be held, you yourself wants to be held accountable in this, so that you can really draw from the well of knowledge and everything that you've inspired in all your training and all the little things you read about and stuff like that. So,
and
yeah.
I don't know, like for me, and I don't know if you guys have a similar experience. I was the sort of personality most of my life where I was trying to be everything to everybody. And that's exhausting. Yeah, right. And so part of the process of the last couple of years has been doing a lot of self-exploration to figure out, you know, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I really love to do? Who do I really love to treat? You know, and like most of us, I want to treat the person I was 10 years ago, you know, like mentally, physically, emotionally, because I know that person and I know how she feels, and I know how to get her to, you know, where I am now. and so yeah, it's been a lot. It was hard, you know, like the shadow work. It's not necessarily fun, but it's necessary. And so it's been fun, but I feel ready to start, especially I think in the situation we're in right now. It's hard to watch all of this happening and then feel like you've got skills and knowledge that you're not sharing, you know.
And it's so hard. I know specifically for myself too, I'm finding because of my nursing background and I literally just put in March my non-practicing license. I still have my license, but it's non-practicing. And I am feeling like loads and loads of guilt for not being out there right now. So my desire to really help and you know, offer programs and do all these things for the frontline workers is just encompassing right now, to be honest with you. And I just feel like I'm just being held back a little bit. That's just me though. Because, you know,
I think a lot of I from who I've talked to, I think a lot of caring professionals feel the same way right now, whether they're not practicing because, you know, it's like for whatever reason or whatever situation they're in. A lot of people are feeling like, you know, I want to help. And then I know for us, we have to be really careful what we say, partially because of our regulations, but also because you don't want to take away from the mandate of the, you know, chief medical officer and the province and the federal government. So we're not even allowed to talk about boosting your immune system right now online, which is, you know, there's pros and cons to being a regulated profession for sure. But and I understand why, but it gets a little frustrating where you're like, okay, well, but these things can, you know, so you have to, it's walking that fine line of how do I help people with what I know, but also support what's happening right now. And
why can't you? I'm going to ask that question. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. I don't mind talking.
Why can't you? It's not like you're like prescribing medicines or doing those types of things. It's just
we can't. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that we can't talk about it specific. It's just we have to be really careful. The reason that was passed down to us from our associations, which I have to say have been fantastic in this entire process. Even our college, who most of us have a bit of a graded relationship with, has been really good. But the reason was basically that they don't want, I think initially they didn't want people assuming they could boost their immune system and then not follow the recommended practices. Although with the array of things online right now, I'm sure all of that would get lost anyways. So
well, yeah.
So I think most of us now are talking about how to, you know, staying away from immune boosting protocols that would have anything to do with viruses or antimicrobials, and talking more about self-care, sleep, stress, mental health, and that kind of stuff, which is obviously just as important, but we just have to be really careful. Yeah, we can't go on and talk about, you know, certain herbs or certain
this or that.
So,
yeah. Well, that's incredible. Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
No, it's just a little funny though, not funny, haha. But I mean, you have that governing body that's looking over and telling you or suggesting things that they would like you to see. But the thing is, because Dana and I really don't have that regulating body, we still have been kind of regulated by these modalities like Facebook, Instagram, all these different things that are really kind of dinging us at the same time and telling us, no, you can't say that word. No, you can't do this. You can't do that or whatever. So even though we don't have those regulations in place, we are still being governed
Censored, yeah.
Censored quite a bit anyway.
Censored, yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that.
No, I'm not either, but it is what it is. And we have to find creative ways to get around that a little bit, which is always keeping you on your toes, because otherwise we would see immune every second word coming through the
totally. And I think the conversation needs to start changing. My background's in genetics, which is what I did before I went back to being a naturopath. And I'm by no means a virologist or an expert, but I do think that we do need to, it's important for people to understand that base health and the foundational health is really so important to not just this particular pandemic, but just, everyday life. And we know that. But I'm hoping that when we come out of this, one of the things that starts to shift is that healthcare priorities and policy do start to consider the fact that that baseline health status of the average Canadian needs to be focused on in our daily practices and in public health practices. Because if they took that as seriously as they're taking this, I don't think we'd be in the same position that way.
Oh yeah, you're so right there.
Do you mean baseline as in understanding your DNA makeup and what so I understand the SNP basis of things, in that those things, some things you can encourage change and understand your baseline to where, of course, but do you think that the healthcare, or do you think the naturopathic care will actually start focusing on that sort of where you can encourage change and understand from that basis background, or do you from gut aspect?
I think I just mean generally the focus of conventional medicine and funded, like provincially funded healthcare, as we all know, is not, it's not a preventative focus. And so, different specialties will have a different lens, I think, that they see it through. But I would like to see public health policy start to address, like, for instance, if even if we don't get into the nitty gritty of, epigenetics and gene expression, which we could get into, right? But even if we just talk about, for me, and I know you guys are in, the same, that it's really like, if we just put even a quarter of the amount of money that we've put into advertising for COVID-19 into, even if they're actually teaching people and advertising Canada's food guide, which we all know is not perfect, but even if they were focusing on what people were eating and mental health and sleep, like those baseline fundamental health lifestyle metrics, everything would change. And we all know that. And I think that I would love to see even a little tiny portion of the focus of our public health care policy shift towards those things in a meaningful way, not just like I stick a poster up on the wall that sleep is good for you, and the other shift that has to come with that is that it's not a quick fix. And they're, and they need to bring in all these allied healthcare professions, because we're the ones that are good at that. Like holistic nutritionists are the ones that are really good at that, not just teaching people what they should eat, but how to do it and how to get those habits into place, and how to find that individual diet, right? Like, so
amazing. So you have been talking about Brene Brown this week as well, because I love creeping you on Facebook. I
keep you guys too.
So, and painting.
Yeah.
So, but Brene Brown, like, when do you read a bit of Brene as well? Like,
a little bit. I think that's why I was up late this morning, because I was up late last night reading a little bit of her book, Lead with, I don't know, the one about
Dare to Lead. Yeah.
Yeah. when I go walking the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to that audio, the Dare to Lead. And I was gifted the gifts of
Gifts of imperfection.
yeah, I actually have it right here beside me. And so that got me started on the whole that got me all started with the whole Brene. She is brilliant. And she just, I mean, listening to her talk, and it's so refreshing, right?
I found her TED Talk in 2012, which is one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, The Power of Vulnerability. And I think it's literally like the third most watched TED Talk or something. Like,
Where's your phone?
oh, what? My phone, I don't know. It's on the counter. 6-year-old.
Oh, it's good. Don't worry.
And
I need to put pictures in the girl.
okay, sorry, hang on. Just pull it. It doesn't need to be.
I know there's a
There you
Netflix
go.
show about Brene too that got me
Yeah,
started
just
on her whole
Call to Courage
Yeah.
is
Call to Courage.
yeah. So
Oh.
it's fantastic. It's a really, the Netflix specials are really nice. It just came out last year, I think around a year ago. It's a really nice like synopsis of what she talks about. But I honestly, I was in my residency and I was looking, I had my very first patient who had really big mental health struggles and had been suicidal in the past. And I was looking for resources and I found her TED Talk and I watched it and just like, I bawled. It was just like, it just, and I have read everything she's put out. I've listened to everything she's put out. And I said to, when we were talking yesterday online about her, I really do think that her work literally saved my life. And because it's all about learning how to show up as you are. And because it's research based, the left side of my brain could wrap my head around it, whereas you know, like I said, I was raised to be very science, very, you know, like the right side of my brain is probably atrophied at this point. So as far as doing the paint night, I'm trying to, you know, bring it back to life. Yeah. And so she and I resonate a lot with her story because she was very much the same way, a perfectionist, and you know, everything had to be measured and scientific. And then when she started to research human beings, she realized that we don't function that way.
Yeah.
We are messy, and the path to, you know, living a life where you really feel like you're contributing and you feel that you are, you know, able to express who you are, you know, the key to that is being able to deal with shame and guilt and vulnerability. And it's ugly and messy sometimes. And, but her, I everyone who will listen to me, I say, like, pick up her books. You don't have to read them in order, but it kind of helps. If you do, I find that, my favorite, so I've read Gifts of Imperfection first, and I read that when it came out. And then I think I've read it like a few times, but I've given that book to, I'm a assistant coach for the varsity volleyball team here, and I've given that book to a lot of the girls. And then Rising Strong and Braving the Wilderness, those two books together, I think they describe the process of how to get out of your own way and start practicing just showing up as you are and being okay with that, and understanding that failure is part of life and that nobody's perfect, and embracing all of our flaws. And that's been really hard for me. I don't know about you guys, but, and I'm sure most people are in the same boat, but that, but what you know, every time that I try to step into that, you know, I show up as a better mom and a better partner and a better person. And it's, so yeah, she is phenomenal. So anybody who's watching this, go on Netflix tonight, turn off Tiger King.
What is I don't understand the obsession with Tiger King. I haven't watched it. My husband, he's kind of in charge of the TV. I don't care. We don't have a TV, so we just have like streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't get through the first 30 minutes of the first episode, so we've never watched it
I
again.
haven't even turned it on, to be honest.
So people are just
you're my
crazy.
people. I haven't seen it either. I just know enough about it because, you know, every time you go online, I feel like it's slowly, maybe its luster is fading. My partner is, he has watched it, and he had it on a couple times, and I kind of peeked over his shoulder, and I was like, really?
Well,
if you're bored, I have things for you to do.
I kind of think of it as being the new Trailer Park Boys or
Oh,
something.
you're kidding. Well, I'm glad I'm not watching it, because that's one thing
Except there's
I never
tigers.
watched. Oh.
Yeah, well, and it's like, you know, Trailer Park Boys on steroids. It's
Insane.
It's insane. So anyways, whatever you're watching.
Brain numbing is what it is. I don't like anything that's going to numb my brain. I'm sorry. Unless I really specifically look for it.
If I'm going to numb my brain, it's generally on something that I don't know. For me, like if I really need to, if I'm recognizing that I need to just really chill, which I'm not a good chiller. I always say I'm the extra to my partner's chill. He's chill, I'm not.
Yeah. He can watch TV like all day. It's been too cold to go outside and do chores or do anything, and he can't work right now, so he's like super bored. He can stay in bed all day and just flip through movies and we're watching like James Bond all over again. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do in the house.
Yeah, I'm the same. And you know, I'm trying really hard not to get stressed out about. The first 2 weeks, I really struggled. I was like, everything's gonna be a project. I'm gonna lose 30 pounds, and my house is gonna be clean, and the kids are gonna learn 3 languages. Like I was just, you know. And that's my coping mechanism, right? Like it took me, as you know, all of us were on a journey. It took me way longer than I would like to admit, at least a week or two to recognize that was my anxiety showing, you know, that, and so I kind of had a big cry and punched a few pillows, and then just, you know, had to be like, okay, we have no idea how long this is going to last, or what's happening, what's true, what's not true. And I just need to take, so people are asking us how we're doing. I'm like, we're just living right now, you know, again, we're super fortunate to be able to do that. I was like, every day is today. That's what we're practicing. And it's been, I definitely dug out a few Brene Brown books after that. I was like, oh dear.
It's like a comforting pillow. You
No,
just
yeah,
grab a few books and go hide in the corner.
It's true. It's like, okay, yeah, the psycho perfectionist is coming out.
Where's Brene?
Yeah, exactly.
I need her.
Yeah, my big 3 whiteboards of to-do lists are like, they're shoved in behind the curtain here. I'm making sauerkraut today, so that's my thing today. So
yeah, and I do think it's important for people to stay busy and active, but I think the pressure, it depends on your personality. I know in one of her talks, Brene talks about how anxiety shows up in people in 2 ways, and one of them is overfunctioning and one is underfunctioning.
Wow.
And she has 2 programs on Audible if you're into audiobooks. And one of them I didn't know about. I'm listening to it now. It's a rehashing of the same thing, but it's more in a course style. It's called The Power of Vulnerability. But she also has a
that's what I'm listening to right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. She has a 3-hour lecture. Yeah. That she did for Soundscape, I think. And I can't remember what it's called, but they're both on Audible, and all her books are on Audible. And she talks about this in both of those audiobooks, I know. And it's like, and probably for you guys too, like my partner is, you know, he would be the underfunctioner. He's fine to sit and chill and, you know.
Yeah.
Not mine.
No. No.
He has a hard time sitting still. And I mean, he doesn't have the best health, so it makes it even more difficult, because he uses work to use that mental thing of not feeling pain situation. So he's
Mhm.
focusing on something else. But then when he comes in, he's just so sore. He works in the garage. He's a car guy. So
Right.
he does all that stuff. And he comes in and he watches car guys on the TV. That's actually the time when I end up numbing my brain, because I'll sit and that's our time together and I'm kind of zoned out doing whatever. I'm working on my phone, but that's my time when my brain numbs a little bit, because you can only learn so much about carburetors and how to spray paint a car and stuff like that. So,
And I think it's important to like, it's okay to have
yeah.
that, you know.
Oh yeah,
like,
no, it is, but it just
yeah, we have to. I
not
think
my
if
thing.
you're, it, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
A couple nights a week, I'll sit and he'll be watching something, and it's like I'll read a book or maybe whatever, or that might be the time where I mindlessly scroll through social media. But I have the tendency to judge myself when I'm doing those things or after. And so part of the process of this is just this process for me is just kind of accepting things the way they are and not having to get everything done today, and allowing myself to just do something for the fun of it with the kids or whatever. And like I said, there's little tiny gifts and joys in this whole process, and that's definitely one of them. So.
Yeah, certainly is. I mean, it does, and that's the thing that we all have to look for every day, is those little blessings that we can see in things, and just wrap our heads around that and find solace in that, right? In that this is a treasured time that's been given to us, kind of forced, but we have to find the blessing in it. There has to be a silver lining. And how amazing is that we here in Canada, some of us or most of us qualify for the funding, or you can transition and just work in your house online. Whereas in the States, a lot of my friends are struggling to try and find funding, and they're mayhem. Like they're trying to push to go back out and start working again.
I don't watch the news, but I did catch a little bit yesterday on,
and there's riots and
protests,
people are walking and protests.
Well,
and
all
it's
over
just
the world.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's too soon for the States. Like I can understand maybe Singapore or China or Spain or Italy, because they're like 3 months into the process,
Mm-hmm.
and but in the States the numbers are staggering.
It really is.
It is staggering, and they're all wanting to go out.
Mm-hmm.
They're all wanting to go back to work.
There's so much misinformation about what's happening, and I think that's partly because there's so much we don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, again, I think that's this kind of the theme of what we've sort of been chatting about. It's like human beings don't do well with uncertainty in general, right? We don't like that. And some of us are better than others, either because of our personalities or we've learned how to deal with that, but we don't do well with uncertainty. And so what happens is we fill in the gaps. And that's actually the definition of conspiracy theory. So, we have spotty facts, and then we fill in the gaps with our fear. And so and with social media, there's so much misinformation. And I think, it's kind of scary to watch how that fear sort of takes over. And I think, you're never going to convince people one way or the other. And people will ask me my opinion. And I said, I don't think we know enough right now, and we're just learning as we go.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely I'm very, very grateful to be a Canadian today. I have no problem saying that I don't love the Conservative Party of Ontario, but I've been really, really impressed with how, the politicians seem to be at least trying to pull together and support people in the best ways that they can. And they're trying to, they put out a program and then realize it's got a hole in it, and they're trying to adjust things. And I think we're really, really fortunate to be, Canadians today. And I have to say that I see what's happening online, and, how much of that's true or not true, I don't know. But I think in general, my consensus is that most Canadians feel the same way. And again, so you sort of watch what's happening in other countries and the online presence. And yeah, I don't know if I've ever been prouder to be a Canadian than I am right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Definitely. We are in a very blessed situation that, you know, and I don't know if Canadians really, I think we appreciate being Canadian, but unfortunately it takes a time like this to really understand how blessed we are to be here. And it wasn't even for myself. I wasn't until I started traveling a little bit to countries that had a little bit less than to understand how wonderful Canada is and how lucky we are here. So, in a situation like this, we are looking at a global situation and we see how things are everywhere else. And
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, you know, of course we're generalizing, but I think that, I think you're totally right that we're a little bit complacent typically as a culture. And I didn't travel much when I was younger, but when I was 21, I think around there, I spent 4 or 5 months in Africa as part of my undergrad. And we lived in tents and traveled around Kenya and Uganda. And I came back a different person because it was in that moment, those moments and those experiences where, you know, we got to live with the Maasai and I got to see giraffes and elephants, and a lot of it was very romantic, but there was a lot of times where we were in small sort of inner cities and you come home and you're just like, people don't realize how fortunate we are. Or even if you travel to the States, I was in Las Vegas a couple months ago for a bachelor party. and even there, you know, you travel to some of these places and you're like, people have no idea, I think, how lucky we are. So I do hope that, you know, whether you agree with what's happening, and hey, I have lots of anxiety and concerns about how the hell we're going to get out of this and what's going to happen to the economy, just like everyone else. But I really hope that people sort of take stock of the fact that we are very, very fortunate to live in the country that we live in.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Well, this has been amazing. Like, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, what does she think about this?
It's such a good idea. I love that you guys are doing this. I think it's fantastic because it's easy to, you know, I have found it easy to stay. In the first couple of weeks, I was reaching out to people, and then sort of in the middle, I was kind of like every day was just every day, and I think it's important to keep people talking, keep us connected, and so that was a great idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it held Wendy and I accountable. That's the whole thing, right? Like, Wendy is phenomenal with her groups in staying connected with them daily and doing videos, and I love and I jump on, but I'm not consistent and erratic. So she's holding me accountable and herself, but it's that whole we should be doing this. There should be that continued Zoom meeting, coffee time, drinking hour, whatever. But it's definitely part of the mental health process to stay connected.
Yeah, and I really, that's something I keep thinking too. Like I had coffee the other day on Zoom with my very, very best friend who lives in Kingston, and it's just far enough that we don't get to see each other as often as we'd like to, because it's a longer drive than you think.
Yeah, 5 hours. Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, why did we never do this before? It's so yeah, perspectives are changing, and I think that people are realizing what, you know, and you see the memes and everything else, but I really do think that a lot of people are starting to realize, like, hey, we know what matters now, you know, and what doesn't. I hope so. Yeah. I hope take that. Yeah. I hope there are lots of lessons in this, globally, when it comes to policy, when it comes to healthcare. But, you know, individually, I hope that those are the lessons that we really take forward from this whole situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's also everyone's wanting things to go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be normal again. This is all new. Everything will be, if you're not coming out of this as changed person, then you have not captured the essence of this moment
and the opportunity.
And the opportunity.
I mean, as crazy and as wild and as chaotic and as devastating as the situation is, there's always a silver lining someplace. And I think it's that mental mindset of really trying to capture that and look for that and make it your own and use this opportunity for a new way of looking at life, a new way of, living life. And something like that, I think, is very, very important as well. Not always dwelling on the negative, which we tend to do, unfortunately. And I mean, I've done it myself. It's those roller coasters of emotions over the first couple of weeks. There was days when I just pulled that cover over my head and I was just like, nope, not doing it again. It's just like, it doesn't seem like it's worth it almost sometimes, but then you come out of it and you really have to shine. You have to really look for that silver lining. And it's just, I find it's very, very important. So.
Yeah, well, and I think when you look at actually how brains work, we focus on the negative because our brains are always looking for what's going to kill us.
Yeah.
We're actually designed that way. And so it takes work to develop that growth mindset, and I think the fallback is always going to be, because we're wired that way. It's a biological, you can't,
it's not our fault.
It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to learn, and I prescribe to the idea that, personally, that I don't know if everything happens for a reason. And I think it's I think when you're talking to someone who's lost a loved one or who's a nurse who's on the front line, it's really hard to swallow this idea that everything happens for a reason. But I do think that you make meaning out of everything that happens.
Yes.
And what you focus on in this moment is really going to be, is really going to be what you carry forward. And back to your point, Dana,
Where's
I know
Daddy?
he's upstairs. He's still sleeping. Don't wake him up. It's his birthday.
I'm gonna have
Give him 10 minutes and we'll wake him up. I'm going to make his coffee.
I'm gonna have get his.
Okay, go ahead. But I think that, I know some people struggle with mental health and other things, or they're feeling lots of pressure. And it's not that you have to come out of this with some brand new skill or a new person, but I think it's important for people to understand that when we do come out of this, no matter what you do during this time, we are not coming out into the same world that we left.
Yeah.
And so that's just a fact. And that can be, there's going to be pros and cons and challenges and silver linings to all of that. So I just hope that it's the people that have the capability of taking this time to be still, be present, do, focus on what matters to them. That's going to be a critical skill going forward as we get out of, as things start to progress. So yeah, I don't say we're going back to normal, because the world is different now, and
The world's different.
Yeah, and that's not it's not going to go back to normal. There's no way. So, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that we have an opportunity to maybe an opportunity that we have never had in the modern sort of era, and I don't know if we'll ever get it again, to shape the world that we're really creating, because a lot of the economics and the finances and the healthcare, all of those systems that we've sort of been placed into, they're being burnt down right now, and so we're gonna have to rebuild them. And I think hopefully we put some thought into how we rebuild them. So,
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Wonderful.
We can only hope.
you can only hope. And this is the work that's important: having conversations, talking to people, listening to opinions that don't necessarily jive with yours, and that's how we do that, I think. So these little things are I think the building blocks of how we move forward into a different and hopefully better system of doing things. So
So we wanted to thank you so much, Tracy. We wondering if you could just tell people a little bit about what you're going to be offering once you open up next week.
And where they can find you.
Yeah, where you can find you and all that kind of wonderful information. And I'll also put it in the comments too, so if everybody,
cool.
wants to connect.
Honestly, it's pretty loosely planned in terms of I'm just sort of setting back up like the online booking and charting and stuff like that this week. and like I said, we're pretty restricted in who we can and can't see, but that doesn't stop people, I think, from reaching out, and we can have a conversation about, you know, who, like, what's urgent, what's not, and all that kind of stuff. But so there's a lot of logistics I haven't really figured out yet, but I know that I'll have the information on my website, which is drtracylynn.com. And then Facebook. I've been starting to post a little bit more. I have a group there called The Revolutionary Woman. And over the next month, we're just going to be talking about, I really love to talk about hormones and the different phases of the menstrual cycle and how your nutrition and your brain and your moods change. And then of course for menopausal women, we like to follow the moon cycle, right? So we're going to be doing a little bit of education and fun stuff around that in that group. So if you just search for me on Facebook, you'll find me. I'm the only one. And so far.
And it's kind of, you know, I know we talked about a lot of different things today, but I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe we should get you on another time just to talk about women in general, because I don't know, the talk that you gave us during that Living with Intention conference that we had was amazing, and just that knowledge that you have, in-depth connection for women in general. It just, I don't know. I just got goosebumps thinking about
well,
it.
I'd love to have that conversation with you guys, because I know that, you know, I would, you know, I would consider both of you to be, you know, sort of in a mentorship space for me in terms of the work that you've been doing, doing it a lot longer than I have, and working with, you know, different people, and also living in the area. So I'd love to have that conversation. The three of us, I think, would be fun. So
yeah,
that'd
be amazing.
Well, this has been so wonderful, Tracy. I want to thank you for taking the time out on your husband's birthday, no less.
He just woke up, so he got to sleep in.
This has been really, really great. So
thank you so much. That was super fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much for letting us just sit in awe and pick your brain and just it's so refreshing to be able to talk about things that we talk about, but with other people. Like, these are things that we talk about all the time. It's not just us crazy people. So yeah.
Oh no, it was great, and I feel the same way. You know, it's like nice to be able to. You got to sit with like-minded people and sort of get out the real feelings and what's, you know. So it was very, very cathartic for me. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. I'm sure we will do it again. So.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, I'm free.
Yeah. For now.
For a little while. All right.
A little while longer. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. Take care.